Welcome to the Skin of the Game podcast. This is where we are going over a couple different things that are happening in the week. I got Ivan here, the content king himself. But one of the biggest things that I've been thinking about right now is I've been watching a lot of obviously AI components, and it's really looking at workflows versus people. Because right now things are always oriented like people wise in terms of, okay, who are you hiring? What's the role you need? But right now it just comes down to like, what's the workflow that's required to be done? And is there like an AI tool that can do that? Is it something you could build? Is there a faster way of doing it? Because most of the workflows we have are built for people, not necessarily for systems or AI or machines. And the biggest thing, especially going into the future, is going to be more like, okay, it's workflows versus workflows. And and instead of it being specifically people versus people. So like that's been one of the biggest things that my brain has just been constantly like, whenever I'm doing something, is like, okay, where's the workflow? What's the workflow? Like, what's the process that needs to be done?
Yeah. I it's interesting because it's like if you think about it, it's always been workflow versus workflow.
No, it has. It's just we haven't computed it in that way. It's like you think that it's a person, but I mean, systems in a company is duplication. So at that point, it's just workflow versus workflow. But now it really comes down to like a fine-tuned engine.
Yeah. And what's and this is actually something that has also been on my mind is the difference between AI native and AI adoption and how different the workflows are when you think from an AI native standpoint
Yeah.
versus a world that existed pre-AI. And is it worth steering like a cruise ship, for example? That's like AI adoption. And you
Yeah.
talk to big CEO like Fortune 500s. Like I've got a friend, she works with a lot of Fortune 500 healthcare,
Mhm.
and she describes it as like a cruise ship that has to change, like basically do a U-turn. And
Yeah.
it is literally like this. And 90% of what they're focused on is compliance and like compliance with data and legal.
Okay.
And if it's outside of those two things, imagine 90% like what you focus on grows. 90% of what they're focusing on is how do I have AI not break the rules
Yeah.
versus how would I do this from absolute scratch in a world that AI already exists in and is already super intelligent.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
the difference in the answers is completely different because one of them you're just automating 70% of a workflow and keeping a human in the loop for 30, and the other one goes about the problem in an entirely different way. Because why would you operate in this way when this way works by itself? I don't know if that makes sense.
But it's always been that way if you think about it, because it's just one player goes on the field, a corporation, to not lose. And then you have a startup that gets into the field for one purpose, to freaking win. So even as you say, like, oh, it's AI native versus it's AI adoptive, it's like, no, it's always been that way. Because what you're really looking at is somebody who's coming in to win and they have nothing to lose versus somebody who has all to lose and they're just worried about conserving their position. I mean, that's business 101. Any big corporation, it's like they're just trying to conserve their position. It's like, oh, we grew 2% this year. Awesome. Everyone celebrates. Versus a startup comes in and does something at a fraction of a cost. Look at NASA versus SpaceX. NASA was so worried about rockets exploding and like so worried about making any mistakes. And then you have Elon Musk that shoots up rockets where the purpose is they're going to explode, because then they're going to find out and they're going to iterate and they're going to improve. So even going back to what you're saying, workflow versus workflow or workflow versus people, it's like it's always kind of been that way. It's just a matter of, what are you going in to win or are you going in to not lose?
Yeah, like there's an investment, there's a startup called Off Deal.
Okay.
I think it's by a guy named Ori or something like that. I found him off of Twitter X,
Yeah.
and their concept is, what would Goldman Sachs look like today if started from absolute scratch? If the
Mm-hmm.
goal is investment banking, then what would it look like from complete scratch? So they break it down all the way to, because investment banking, and this has been a big portion of the last year and a half for me, is like, what do investment bankers actually do? Like, what do consultants actually do? And what do they literally do? And what is the value that they provide? Investment bankers, at the end of the day, if they're helping the seller, just help the seller drive up an auction for their business, and actually sell the business for a value that is a win-win for both, or maximizing for the seller at least. But very, very, very basic terms. And all that is like, it's the same thing if I wanted to like sell this mouse or whatever. It's just stirring up an auction on Facebook Marketplace. It's communication, and it's it's financial diligence and then communication. Like at its bare bones, sales and marketing, communication. So it's like, would you go about communication and sales and marketing the same way, whatever year Goldman Sachs started versus today? And the answer is two completely different things. So they have like eight bankers making over $1 million a year versus two managing directors plus analysts plus this plus that. They just have eight. And it's way more horizontal versus vertical because they're building something that's entirely different. Like they've got AI agents doing financial due diligence. I mean, you can imagine you've started to touch into the degenerate go-to-market cold email stuff with Claude Code and all this other, like it's completely different what you would do today, starting from scratch. And it's almost, the question I've been messing with is like, is it worth adopting something and changing the direction versus going and almost uprooting it completely and rebuilding it from scratch? I think for us, it's very exciting. Like there was a clip by David Senra, which I could pull up. You know David Senra from Founders?
Yeah, Founders Podcast.
And he was on TBPN with the boys. And he was basically saying that the CEO of Shopify said 2026 is the year that everyone realizes that literally any business is up for grabs because all of them are now level playing field because AI has created such a disadvantage or advantage.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And if you think about it, it's like the internet democratized access, but AI has democratized the leverage or skill set because now it's like everything can be learned. It's the mode of having something to be able to build and allocate capital is completely different. And like I even think that the whole DC model is just broken because of that. Because it's like if you can grow organically, which a lot of e-commerce and a lot of different aspects are talking about that now, in terms of like you can grow by funnel hacking or social media and growth. So now you have virtually unlimited distribution if you can crack it, and you have code that can build things where now you can do that. It's like, what do you need? You don't have the same need for outsized capital at that point because the moat of it being there isn't the same anymore because like you're saying, you can do it. And I think that the interesting part about kind of the whole process here is really just when you're a market leader or a winner, do you decide to cannibalize your own business or do you try to like milk the cow as long as humanly possible? Look at Dave. You even showed me the book with the book on Elon. It's like I bought the Kindle. Jeff Bezos loses a lot. Like Amazon lost billions of dollars when they rolled out the Kindle, because they could now people could buy books on the Kindle versus buying it in hard copy, right? But he decided to cannibalize and was willing to cannibalize his own golden goose because that is the way it evolved. And instead, now they're also the biggest seller of Kindle books. And guess what? Kindle books is an info product. There's no cost of goods. So in reality, like, yes, you're making less per unit, but there's no additive cost of selling 1 billion units versus selling 10 units. So as long as you're willing to stay ahead and cannibalize your own business, you're going to be able to evolve. It's just a matter of that old versus new of like who's willing to upend the process and then go from there.
What's interesting too is what you're finding out, or I think what everyone's finding out, is who truly understands the value that they actually bring versus who is just doing what was being done because it made money.
Yeah.
Because if you think of what actually adds value, like back to what you're saying about the VC model may be broken, I think just straight up checks are not good enough anymore because you see them raise so much capital. Like, I mean, there was one guy who, from Sequoia, he made a joke in a podcast he was doing. He was like, back in the day with this investment, I wrote a check for $1 million. And I know that sounds like insane right now because like you would never take $1 million seriously from anyone as like traditional San Francisco startups or whatever it
Yeah.
is. He was laughing at that, but what you're saying, tying it back to what you're saying, was just capital isn't good enough anymore, and I don't
Yeah.
think it's ever been good enough. But now, because of what you're saying, they leveled the playing field out with media. You have like A16Z with Andreessen Horowitz. They're making some of the coolest, sickest videos I've ever seen because they're
Yeah.
recruiting. They're literally investing in like Instagram filmmakers to go work at
Influencers. Yeah.
A16Z,
And
influencers to
animators.
go make
Yeah.
some. Yeah, exactly. And that, like,
But brand
there's
is what
so
becomes
many.
like brand, taste, and personality is what becomes the mode. Like that's what
Yeah,
it comes down to at the end of the day. Because like you're saying, expertise, you could ask ChatGPT and it's going to give you a lot of the same advice. Money is in terms of a blank check doesn't do it. So it's then really like brand, like taste, personality, and brand that really just differentiates why I would go with you versus another one, which just brings it back to like a very old school process of like, if you're liked, they'll do business with you. Like that's really just what it comes down to.
yeah. And when it with brand, something that you and I both know because we've been behind a couple of pretty decent sized ones,
Yeah.
is how much value you actually add. But you
Oh,
can't add value if you don't understand what actually is valuable to the other person. Like
yeah.
people thought that it's so stupid to me on Twitter. You see all these people that are talking about these software startups and all this other. You have like the most intelligent thing that's ever existed ever at
Yeah.
the palm at your fingertips or whatever, and the first number one thing you decide to like spin up or code is some little iPhone app
Yeah.
that hopefully you cross your fingers like will go viral and everyone will download for free and then you can sell ads on it or something stupid like that. It's like
Yeah.
I don't think you understand what the actual value that you provide to the marketplace is as you're doing. And I think that's why so many of the more white collar people are going to get absolutely wrecked because their identity is attached to the tasks that they're doing and not to they don't really like pick up their head to realize the value that they actually provide. Like they think that the reason why they were getting paid X amount of dollars per year was
Yeah.
because they could manipulate Excel in this exact way or whatever.
Yeah.
And they didn't understand the judgment that was unlocked because of the ability to do
The
that inside of
insight.
Excel, the
Yeah.
insight that was unlocked by their work that
Yeah.
then triggered off that. Like you don't have context to what you play in the role you play in the whole value chain,
Yeah.
and if you don't understand, you're totally screwed. And
Which is
it's
almost no 100%. Like it's insane, and that actually kind of goes into the process of like what I now believe is going to be one of the most valuable skill sets in the world, and that comes down to systems thinking, right? Systems thinking. If I go purely based off of the description or definition that I have here in front of me, it's system thinking is a holistic problem solving approach that analyzes how individual parts of a system interact and influence the whole rather than focusing on isolated pieces. And going exactly back to what you're saying, it's like white collar people to a large extent are, especially in like bigger corporations, the cog that fit that one piece. And then like they're just like, oh, I do this one piece and that's one piece that I do, versus like scrappy startups, scrappy founders, or other people. It's like, dude, we got to do all of it. Like we got to bring it all together. Right now,
yeah,
the bigger corporations have gotten really good at systematizing this, where like there's obviously the founders, the creators of it do the systems thinking and build it out, and then they just have humans doing those pieces. But that's going to get removed now because again, going back to the judgment, the thinking, the process there. And I'd almost venture to say that blue collar people are more likely to be systems thinker than white collar people, simply because as a blue collar person, I know if I turn this knob, something's coming out the other end if I'm a plumber, or if I set up this beam and I just rip that beam out, like the fucking roof's gonna fall apart. Like as
yeah,
a blue collar person, you're taught to be more systems thinking because you're building the whole system one at a time, or you're being brought in to fix different pieces of it. It's not the same task over and over again.
yeah. And that's what like a mechanic working on a car. Like just because it's making this sound doesn't mean you rip this entire thing out because it'll impact this and this and this and this. And that's actually why I think that there was a clip that went kind of viral. It was what's his name?
Travis
Chamath.
Kalanick, or
No, well
okay,
that's him, but there was a clip from Chamath
yeah,
that it was pretty recent. He was like, software develop like the typical top 10x software engineer is no
Yeah.
longer that valuable. And
No.
people were like, no, they're just more valuable now because of AI and software implements them. And he's like, you don't have the moat was once the judgment you had in terms of the tools that you would use to connect things. So like software is just UI plus a database on the back end.
Yeah.
So he's like a 10x engineer was valuable because they understood the best type of UI and the best type of database and the best way to connect it all in order to
Mhm.
have an experience for the person. Now that all of that is eaten away, it's like what is actually built in the like what is the app or whatever it is that is built in the first place, and that judgment is completely removed from engineering. It's actually inside of the system and the problem in the system. So like there was a guy a doctor won a coding contest because he's a doctor, so he understands his patients and the
Yeah.
workflow inside of the clinic. He made a
Yeah.
software. You probably saw it. Made a software, and then won that coding competition because his software was directly applicable to the work stream inside of the clinic. So he
Yeah.
has more context as to what should be made versus some San Francisco bro, some SF bro, all the way over there in the valley that has never been inside of a clinic and is just making something for like a med spa or something. And
Dude,
the
it's
that
it's so
I
funny you
hate these
say.
video editing
Yeah.
tools. Video
Like,
editing AI apps are so bad because they're all made by engineers and they're not made by actual creative people who are actually editing videos. So they all work completely backwards and they all suck. Every single one of them.
my biggest problem right now is to kind of piggyback on that a little bit is when I see on, when you're scrolling Twitter and you see all these people using AI and like, oh, this is game changing, this. It's like, I
Yeah.
get some FOMO because I'm like, oh, frick, I want to learn how to do this. But then I also look at like, okay, this is cool and all. Like, it's a fancy car, but like, what does it do? How fast does it drive? Like, what do you solve by this? And I kind of yet have to see, especially with like people that were talking about OpenClaw, like, yeah, you can automate simple tasks. Like you can do things like that. Like for sure, I'm all for it. Like you have to leverage it. It's a no brainer. But these people that have like 13 Mac minis and it's like, oh, they're running my life and this, that, the other. It's like, what exactly does that look like? Like that's where I'm always curious about because I know it will move there eventually, but right now it's like it almost seems like it's just good for info and community and content itself because you're like sharing content about that content that was created to be content, right? And it's kind of like this ricochet of like the coaches coaching the coaches versus like
Yeah.
who's actually doing this, right? And that's where a lot of the things that I found that are the most interesting are the actual people that do the tasks building the things for themselves, right? Kind of like you're saying in terms of the doctor building the app, because it's like unless you have that extreme domain expertise, it's hard to have like something that's a functional use case. It's like it's not a tool until it can solve a specific problem. And that's where my biggest challenge is because I'm trying to wrap my head around it. And it's like, you have this like learning system and it has all these skills and it's like, okay, but what is it learning? It's learning to learn. Like, give me some concrete in terms of like, this does this task faster than anything else. And it does it automatically. Like I get reporting, I get data, I get a lot of these things, but it's like, okay, what are the actual tools? And that's where I think most people are like misunderstanding AI in terms of the use case. It's like I could build like you could build 1,000 hammers, but a hammer's not useful until you have a nail to hit in and a problem to actually solve.
Yeah, that's with starting starting with a solution in mind before you're finding the problem. I didn't understand how important that was until you see how fast you can go in the wrong direction with AI. Like you can literally spend 8 hours not sleep for a day or whatever it is inside of Claude Code and come out with this fancy tool and then realize that you'll literally never use it because it was never a problem to begin with. Versus
Yeah.
starting with the problem like you're saying. And this is there's okay. So Alex Karp
Okay.
from Palantir, CEO of Palantir, the crazy dude with those headstands in his chair.
Yeah, I know who he is.
He he's
Great hair.
he's always talking about phenomenal hair. He's always talking about we need help.
Yeah.
And it's like what help do you actually need? And this is the scale, by the way. I think if there's one thing that is safe ish from AI and will guarantee that someone has a job somewhere or has the ability to make money anywhere, It's what he calls a forward deployed engineer. And at first, I thought a forward deployed, you hear the word engineer, it's like purely technical.
Yeah.
And the technical makes sense because you need to know what good code is, what bad code is, all this other stuff.
Yeah.
But you also don't have to start technical because you can also teach yourself at an insane pace the technicalities that you would need to know. So what these guys do is that, like, this is what they did. They go into the military. They basically learn how it all works, how the sausage is made, and then they look to translate that into the infrastructure that AI needs to run through it. That's why they're so insane. So
Yeah.
that's why they talk about the ontology or whatever. That's the infrastructure for the AI to run through. So then, like, we kidnap presidents of Venezuela and shit. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But they've started with like the military and like with the literal largest business that you could start with, which is the US government.
Yeah.
And now they're starting to get into, they've been in other industries and everything else. But to bring it back down to earth for people our age and anyone that's like freaked out, if you have an understanding of the AI tools, then you unlock the two things that the forward deployed engineer needs. One is learning. So what they do is they just learn the way that the sausage is made, which you can just get up to speed with some deep researches and plugging those into Notebook LM and then learning on the podcast and the videos on the fly. I've literally, and they have a guy made like a CLI you can connect in the terminal, so you can literally just like type in Claude Code and then it'll feed you back podcasts and videos from Notebook LM, and you can just start learning it like this, like that, and all of a sudden you can learn in a month what took someone 5 years to learn, and then you can get in contact with the domain expert, and is like, is this true? Is this true? Is this true? And all of a sudden you are crystallizing the knowledge of people that actually know what they're doing and have real problems to solve. And then you can start building on top of that, which is the deployment engineer, as the engineering part.
Yeah.
But on top of that, you don't even necessarily need to know how to code because you can A, learn it because you unlock the skill of learning.
Yep.
But B, Claude Code knows how to code better than any human on earth. And so does Codex. So you take both of those things, you go into an industry that is massively behind, which is all of them, and then you just codify their information in a way that AI can understand it, and you are more valuable than I think 99% of every single degree possible. Honestly, I'm
sure.
doing it, and it's
Yeah.
working.
No, for sure. And I think the other part of that too is in terms of just learning and really iterating is where it's an understanding and having things for it to solve and be actionable. And just going back to like first principles thinking, systems thinking, and understanding how the piece or the sausage is made as far as that goes is really where it comes down to, because that's how you can position yourself more specifically and really just take advantage of everything that's going on.
Yeah, and there's everything's moving so fast, but nothing is radically changing at the same time.
Yeah.
Like or go ahead.
No, I was gonna say like it's insane. Like we see these developments, like oh, this is happening, this is happening. Like I have to update Claude every other day at this point because they're launching new stuff. But it's also like I think it's probably like you see the writing on the wall, but like the vital crack hasn't happened yet. So I definitely see it as something like underground changing. But I think that at the end of the day, it's just kind of you have to lean into it, and especially if anyone's young right now, it's like the single greatest skill you can learn is to leverage the greatest tool in the world. Like that's really what it comes down to, and to lean into it as opposed to try to do it, because as humans throughout our entire evolution, we've always relied on weapons of some sort or tools. And tools can typically be weapons. But the point is, we've always relied on this. It's like first you had the bicycle, and then like Steve Jobs talks about this story of how he saw this chart of how efficient humans were compared to animals in terms of movement. Humans were like all the way at the end of like next to the turtles of like we're slow, we're this, we're that, the other. And then as soon as they invented the bike, suddenly you can move so much more efficiently. And now you're up with the Giselle and like the cheetah and this, that, the other, because it's like so much more efficient. And the large part of the reason that humans are where we are today and is just the usage of tools, right? They talk about the thumbs, because we're able to use tools and we're able to find leverage. And this, what we're going through right now, is like one of the biggest shifts of leverage that's probably ever happened. And to be able to lean into that and really just leverage is what it is. And I think going back to what you were saying too, because we were talking last week and I was really impressed. It's like there's probably the last 100 years, there's never been a lack of information, because before there was an informational advantage, right? You got to go to, like, you were poor and broke and was raised in the streets, and I had an education, which meant that I knew a lot of things. Like there was an arbitrage of what I knew and I could kind of exploit you, right? Then the internet comes along and now you can get multiple quotes sitting on the toilet, because you have that. So like the informational aspect has been removed. And then even more so as more and more information is available. Like think of the old days. People would buy one book and they'd reread it hundreds of times because that's all they could afford. Like they were rare and they couldn't come by it. Printing press, access to information. But now we're also in the place of like, now you can even do it. You can take action on the information leveraging AI. But I'm very certain that right now, information's always been there, but it's the appetite to consume the information and then go do something with it, which is where the challenge is, right? They say knowledge is power. It's like, no. Knowledge could be power, but action and initiating and doing something with it becomes power.
Yeah. What, like you're saying, learning how to leverage the best tech ever, for me, probably the most humbling experience of using it has been to realize how little I actually understand how to leverage.
Mm-hmm.
Because like we never had an infinite amount of intelligent employees. Like with AI, you're the equivalent of like a consulting firm billionaire with engineers on staff. And you could think and then speak and then it would happen. And this is what they've been experiencing and have experience in using. So like they have an understanding of how to leverage the actual leverage. Like they have the questions that they ask are entirely different. So this is like one of these questions, these prompts are like my favorite things ever, is putting in, whether it's a transcript of a conversation or opportunities or whatever it is, into Claude or your AI, whatever you choose, and asking it, in an AI native world, what are the opportunities that I'm missing here? Like, what is the highest leverage way to solve the problem, including it not even being a problem?
Yeah.
Because it's only a problem to you because you see it from a specific lens, but half the time it isn't even a problem. Or what are the dots that are in front of me that I'm not connecting? And then half the time it's like, I saw that. Like that was right. But then like the 1 in 10 times that I see it and it's pointed something out and I'm like, wait, what does that even mean? And then I define some of the words and this and that. I'm like, dude, I would have never thought about that in a million years. And it's as simple as like a phone call to this person to connect this person to this person. And then all of a sudden you have a relationship that blossoms out of nowhere. And I was like, dude, I think this is why VCs and PE and all this stuff, like these people who operate with like maximum leverage and just capital and people and everything, are so wise, and we love listening to them because they think so differently, because they literally live in a different world.
No,
and
it goes back to like
we don't know
the
how to
process of, it goes back to the process of the thing that I've been struggling with and really like having to learn is like who, not how. Get this done. First default is like, all right, how do I do it, right? What do I need to do? Versus like you're saying, it's how or who.
Yeah.
And who is Claude Code, or who is Claude Coworker, or Perplexity, or Gemini, or whatever. And moving into that of like, okay, a lot of the work then is how is it done in terms of like, what's the best way of doing it? So I think that that's definitely really interesting. And like, even just the prompt of like, are there any questions or additional context you need from me? Like I've started just adding that all over the place, which again, is like basic level aspect. But it's the idea of like, what am I not telling you that I should be telling you, right? And I think also
Yeah.
going back to what you're saying is like, okay, is there a better way to do it, or is this something worth doing at all? Because it's like in many cases you have this idea of like, oh, this needs to be done, right? And it's almost like calculating distance through on the ground in terms of like walking through the terrain versus distance air. Like the AI is air. It can
Yeah.
find the straight solution, but we're so busy of like, oh, there's a pond there. I have to walk around it, or there's a river. I need to build something to go over it, or go across it on a boat. But it's like to understand and to really leverage and lean into like, is this the right way? If so, yes. Okay, cool. What other information do you need to do in order to make this decision? Like that's where I think there's going to be a huge kind of unlock as far as actionable components of putting into practice.
Yeah. And then just clarity on what you actually want around probably everything. Because I met a
So
guy
this
this
is
week and he was asking me that question, and I didn't realize how unclear it was until he kept defining what clear actually was.
oh, for sure, for sure. I had a call with a guy earlier today actually, and he goes like, you know what? You know why most people don't have other people do things for them? And it's like, I don't know, like, and then it's like, well, maybe they don't want to do it. It's like, no, they don't want to go through the process of having to train or teach someone else to do it in terms of offloading it. And a lot of that could be to the fact that they don't know what clear is. Like they don't understand, they're not even clear themselves on like, okay, what's the perfect pizza? Like, how do you define a crust? Like medium, rare, fluffy, like, what do you say? So instead it's like, it's this perceived idea of, I just know what it is and I know it when I see it, which is in many ways just a cop out of like, I haven't clearly defined it. So I kind of have to just filter through it and hope it pops in front of me, because I'll know when I know. But that's also one of the big things is like, in order to be specific, right? In terms of like what defined terms, what is this? What is that? Because you think you're like, oh, well, I think like kind of this or that. But is
Mhm.
like the reason hand palm reading like works is because they say like, oh, you're this or maybe that. And it's like you make it broad enough to where everyone feels like they're specific enough that it's talking about them. But in reality, you're talking about nobody. And
Yeah.
that's where it's like the AI cannot pick up on that. Like it cannot understand that. So you have to be laser determined. And that's where I think that like, again, systems thinking, but also clarity thinking in terms of taste and being specific in terms of exactly what you want and being able to articulate that. If you could do that, I mean, the world's your oyster at this point.
When with I had written it down somewhere. I don't remember where it was, but it was like a few months ago where I was like, AI has completely changed. AI has taught me so much about communication indirectly, because if you're communicating something like pre-AI, let's say we're having a conversation and I say something, and or the analogy that I use to make it make sense in my brain is like us as the male species in
Yep.
speaking to a member of the opposite sex are
No,
oftentimes
Jesus.
confused
Yeah.
when we say something and a reaction that we weren't anticipating at all comes out. We're
Yeah.
like, whoa,
Yeah.
I did not mean that way. Or like, I did not, or I don't know. It's just like, you want to eat
Something was
something and you're
clearly
like,
lost in translation.
exactly. You're like, or they're like, you want to go here? And you're like, sure. And they're like, no, but you clearly don't want to go. Why don't you just say yes or this or that? But even that alone, you could usually write off as like, dramatic or crazy. But that's really good to do if you like want to have a terrible time. But
Yeah.
if you want to have a good time, it's like, what did I say that made that reaction happen? Or what has
For sure.
happened in your past, in your memory, or in your past experiences, or your training data?
Yeah.
What has happened in the past to trigger that response that I got back? And with AI, when you prompt it, it literally has there's no other variable outside of its training data, its
Yeah.
context window, and then your prompt.
Yeah.
So if you've given it a prompt and are getting an output that is completely out of left field, it literally Okay, if it's the context
It's
window,
like
you
it's
can
like being
control
up
that.
against a mirror. It's
Training,
like being up against a
exactly.
mirror.
That's exactly what it is. Because if it's the training data, you don't have control over it. So what's the point in worrying about it?
Worrying about that.
But the only thing you have control over is the prompt. So it's literally a mirror to how unclear you think. And it's kind of like, someone when they're like, oh, social media nowadays, all they do is show me women on my feed. It's so terrible. And you and I both know is because you train your own feed. Like,
Yeah.
that's why you have that on your feed, because you've trained
Yeah.
it to show you that. So
That's
that
what
means you're
that's what you're
consuming
looking
that.
at. Yeah.
You're telling on yourself. So when someone's like, AI is not there, or I can't use it for this or that, they're telling on themselves because they themselves are not clear enough on thinking. Because unless you're clear enough in thinking, it's not going to work. But the only way to get clear at the thinking and the communication and the accuracy of the words that you're using, which is another thing for me has gone up a ton, because you have to be like semantically accurate with AI in order for it to actually work. Because the only way to do that is by realizing you're the problem and being proactive around your communication.
For sure.
And the only way to do that is to humble yourself when faced with the fact that you're the actual freaking problem. So this has been AI has drastically helped me with that. And then I've realized a very same thing with humans, obviously not communicating the same, but you realize different things of like what in your past has had you like, I don't think I said anything completely out of pocket. What now you're curious, like what in your past has triggered this response? Who in the past said this to you? That
Also think,
you know what I
think
mean?
about it this. Also think about it this. It's like if we go and I'm like, yo, you want to go on a boys trip to Miami, right? And you're like, how much is it? It's gonna be cheap.
Yeah.
Define cheap. Like, are we
And
talking
define
Walmart cheap?
Miami. Different
Yeah.
people have different associations with Miami.
Exactly. Like, is it Walmart cheap or is it like Target cheap or like something else or just something astronomically different? Which is where it's like the whole concept of surround yourself with like higher value people or more successful people is gonna like expand your vision. That's what it comes down to. It's like you get an understanding that like cheap is something very expensive in your eyes, but it's just reframing cheap, right? It's like also cheap in comparison to what? Like, would a Vegas trip be way more expensive? Like, all of it comes down to like, what are you contrasting it against? It's like, well, dude, it's 70 in here. Is that hot or warm? It's like, well, I don't know. Like, was it 40 earlier or was it 100? Because that's going to drastically change the difference of like, is it colder or is it warmer? And that's another part of it where it's like, you just have to be super specific in terms of your language, of knowing what you're communicating, what you're actually saying, what you're requesting, and then being clear enough in your thinking to know what you want. And that's where I think most people just aren't. And like, I'll put myself in that category too. It's like, I'll kind of like figure it out, but at least have the understanding of like, I don't know yet, because to what you were saying earlier, it's like you could run like what AI does in terms of workload. It's like you can do 3 weeks worth of work, but if you're going in the wrong direction and you don't take a minute to step out of like, is this worth going or is this worth doing? Then you're screwed. And it's like, it would within anything, it's like the 80-20, right? The Pareto principle of like, okay, what's the 20% you can do to get 80% of the results? It's like, we can all stay busy for the next 15 years and like achieve nothing. Or we could be laser focused in 2 weeks and achieve like a ton of those stuff. It's just, are you focusing on the things that are going to move the needle and are you not? Which again, I'd say goes back to agency, systems thinking, of being clear of what you're trying to do. The plumber, looking at it as a problem that needs to be solved, which one, identify the problem. Just don't jump into it. It's like, what can you tinker with it? What are the most likely things, right? If you go of like a decision-making hierarchy, what is the most likely cause? You go 1, 2, 3, whatever. Okay, cool. Have you diagnosed it? No. Yes. Awesome. If not, okay, what's next, right? Having that understanding, and especially in terms of any sort of knowledge work, being able to approach it that way is, I think, the only way to kind of be able to keep with it, because the age of you go work at one company for 30 years and then you die or retire is like, that's nuked. I don't see that happening at all. And now it's like more about being more independent hunter gatherers of like, all right, like if I could just siphon off a small piece here of this big piece as a whole, I'm good. Like, I don't need to build the world's biggest cow freaking corporate machine with millions of cows. It's like, dude, if I just get a cow or two a year, I'm good. Like that's all I need to slice off.
Yeah. That with what you were saying earlier about knowing what you want, it's super powerful to also know that you don't know, because then you can ask and you can
Leverage
what's
the AI.
but that's what I mean by we don't know how to leverage unless you're like a billionaire or you have that you're used to having 1 million employees. You're used to having $1 billion. You're used to having engineers work for you. You're used to having that. So like that's why all the use cases I think, like for example, the open call thing you said earlier, are just around tasks and they're not around how to think better. But the massive changes that have happened for me are leveraging it to help me think about what I want. What are the dots that I'm not seeing connected? And then who should I ask about this or this or that? I have these people in my network. I've done this. This is sick. I have these people in my network. I'm facing this problem. You literally just download their LinkedIn profiles as a PDF and
Yeah.
feed it in there. Because they, you
Yeah.
know, they optimize their LinkedIn, so they are sure to
Yeah.
tell you what skills they have and people they know, whatever.
Of course.
Throw it in there and say, what questions should I ask them around this problem, and what kind of conversation should I have? And it'll literally give you a list of questions that would be really good to ask. You can go have the conversation on Google Meet, record it, and then throw the transcript in there and say, but from here, now what? But
Yeah.
unless you are unclear that, you know what I mean? Like, you don't know that you don't
It
know,
is. Yeah.
and you're
'Cause
not willing to admit it.
it's assuming that either you're going to have something that's going to completely replace you or improve you, right? It's not going to fully the people that get replaced by AI are going to be replaced by people who use AI. Like that's as simple as it is. And having this tool, it's like, okay, understanding how it works and how you can leverage it is really what it comes down to. And it's like, that's probably something most people aren't going to find out for quite a while. And like, we still don't know the edges of what this is capable of. It's like, we don't know the unknown unknowns. And that's definitely a lot of what probably concerns a lot of people and like scares them. But the reality is the genie's out of the bottle, and you and I and probably 99% of the people that are watching this, shout out all 5 of you, they will also know that the concept, what it comes down to, it's like you can only lean into it. Like we can't worry about what it's going to do in the long term because of, like, quite frankly, we can't control that. So like if you take
Yeah.
what the few things you can control in terms of how you're spending your time, what you're doing, what you're learning, and what you're trying to build in terms of what you're trying to solve, that's really where it comes down. And then you're, like you're saying, really using it as a sparring partner of like, okay, make me better. What am I not thinking of? Asking it questions, not blindly following, but simply asking it and relying on what it has and what it doesn't have. And like, okay, give me feedback. What do you think about this? What about this? What am I missing? Is there something else I should be doing? Like leverage it that way, like you would leverage a smart, I don't know, like mentor or something like that. You have the world's most powerful component in your pocket. It's just a matter of knowing what it can or can't do, and also prompting it in terms of how to ask better questions or this, that, the other, because by default, it's going to want to give you what you want. And the same thing in the mirror, if it's reflecting what you're seeing and it's saying, oh yeah, you're right, it's just going to be another echo chamber. But if you're telling it like, what am I missing? Like, make me sharper, right? In pretty much any business, and I'll finish with this, in terms of pretty much any business capacity I've always looked at is I've envisioned myself as the rock that a sword sharpens on. It's like, I'm not ready yet. I'm not refined yet to be a sword. But if I can just make you a little bit better in terms of our conversations and provoking you or asking better questions, better terms, better this, that, the other, and I can get something better out of you, then you're better off for it, right? And you're going to want to keep coming back because I'm adding to your life. I'm helping and you're improving. That really is what it comes down to. And if you can use AI to be that, and you are the sword yourself, and you can layer on layer, sharpen day by day, you could do so much more iterations in such a short time that would have taken lifetimes to do previously, simply based on time, simply based on access, and simply based on leverage.
And the crazy results happen when you also take those answers and cross-reference them against real life mentors, because then you have the actual truth without having to have, like you said, go through the decades of experience in order to get it. You just got there way faster.
And that's
So
the
yeah.
pod.